Commit to World Nation. Welcome to the Commit to World podcast. I'm your host, Juan Vargas. Today on the show, we have Juan Guarino. Juan has over 30 years of experience in real estate investing and business experience. He's the founder of Residential Assisted Living Academy, a top educational platform for owning, operating, and investing in residential assisted living and senior housing. He highly encourages investors to get involved in this mega trend opportunity. Juan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Juan. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. So this is something that we don't normally have, someone that is involved in senior housing, senior living. So I'm excited to talk about this. And, I know that there is a big, a big opportunity here for people to get involved. So, but before we get into that, let's talk about your background. Tell us about your background. Tell us where you're calling us from, today. And, then we'll fast forward to today and, tell us why it is that you're in this business in the first place.
So I'm in Mexico right now. We're here on a little trip and in Mexico, but I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I live right now, originally from upstate New York. So in a way of kind of covering the background, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I was a professional musician as a teenager. We had a music school, recording studio, small record label, rented a house for a couple of years. We ran our business out of there. And at the end of those 2 years, we said, we've got to either move or we're shutting down the business. So we looked up the street, saw a for sale sign, and that was the beginning of our real estate career. We bought that house, no money down, and been doing it ever since.
Okay, gotcha. So what brought the idea of residential, assisted living? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was about literally 20 years ago. I was in a large room, hundreds of people. There was a presenter in the front talking about all kinds of real estate opportunities. And he spent maybe 10 minutes talking about baby boomers, senior housing, and what was coming. And he was saying, this is the place to be. So I remember at the end of that presentation, I ran up to the front and I said, tell me more. And he said, well, I can't. I said, why not? He said, because I don't actually do it. I'm just telling you, you should do it. So I was kind of disappointed.
Okay.
But at that point, I asked him, do you know anybody else who's doing this? And only people that I could find weren't willing to share with me what it is they were doing because it's lucrative. So my interest kind of went down and the economy changed. And we all know what happened over the last 20 years, the economy-wise. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until my own mother needed help. And she was in her 80s. She needed more help and attention that this came back to me to say, now is the time to get into this. Because I knew it from the firsthand perspective of mom needed help. I couldn't find what we were looking for. So that's when we vowed to create that solution, a home, not a hotel, not a big box facility, but a home that mom could move into to be taken care of 24/7. And that's when I got into it. And that was about 6 years ago now.
Gotcha. So your model is a little different than, like you just said, the big box, right? So, those guys, it's sort of like a conventional multifamily, but they have, seniors living in those homes, right? So what you do is more, single family homes, and you bring in, someone that fits the requirements, right? Or the fits the right avatar, I guess, so to speak. And, you're able to do that, right? So, first of all, tell us, what qualifies as residential living for your properties. Tell us that real quick.
Yeah. So in general, and I want to make sure everybody really is clear on this, there's two parts: real estate on one side, and then the business of operating the REL or the residential assisted living is the second part. So from the real estate side, it's a single family home versus a converted hotel or apartment complex. And when we say assisted living, it's not just a house for seniors. It's not like just the Golden Girls where it's seniors who live there. It's a service. So we're taking care of them 24/7, not medical, but not the Golden Girls, someplace right in between. And those people who are living in assisted living on average in the US today are paying $4,000 a month per person to be in that home. And we typically will have 10 or 12 seniors in each one of those homes. So the gross income on a monthly basis, $40,000, $50,000 is a monthly income, very, very significant. And after all expenses, somewhere between 20 and 30% of that is your profit each month.
Yeah, so those are some very large numbers that we're not necessarily accustomed to seeing on a traditional single family home. So I want to talk more about that, but even before that, let's talk about the number of people that are actually transitioning over into, senior housing. I know we kind of talked about that at the very beginning. So give us the number. Do you have a number, right there in front of you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So when we talk about baby boomers, and that's the big catchphrase for demographics and age, prior to that, the people who are in assisted living right now, they're called the silent generation. And there are 60 million of them. But the baby boomers, the ones that are early front end of the baby boomers, 72, 73 years old right now, there's about 77 million baby boomers in America today. And that's what we call the silver tsunami, this unstoppable wave of seniors that is aging and coming. So let me break it down even farther. 10,000 people every day are turning 65, 4,000 every day are turning 85. And that 85-year-old is your key demographic, the super seniors. That's 120,000 a month. That's 1.4 million people a year turning 85.
Oh, wow.
Literally hundreds of thousands of them are going to need assisted living for an average of 3.5 years. So it's a huge crisis if you're not prepared for that. And for us entrepreneurs, it's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, no, I see that. I think there's a lot of us that are focusing more on millennials and their needs, and because that's a big wave of demographic that's coming in, or that we have here currently, right? So, a lot of like my listeners, they get into multifamily. They like multifamily because of that, right? So there's a big need, but if you think about the senior side of things, these guys are needing these like today, like they needed them yesterday. They need housing like yesterday, right? So that makes it even a more demanding, in my eyes, and it's going to continue to be demanding. So I think that for anybody that's even thinking about getting into this space, I've thought about it in myself. That's why I was very very interested in talking to you. There's going to continue to be a demand for this. So. Let's talk about, I know you mentioned the cash flow, so we'll kind of save that for the end. We'll go into more details on that, but let's talk about what what is it, the kind of person that you are looking for? I know you said the super seniors, which are like 85 years and older. So is that really what you're looking for, or do they have to have like some kind of physical challenges, to qualify for like your model is what I'm saying.
So, yeah. So to really better understand it, nobody moves into assisted living unless they need help or assistance. So there's a term called ADL, which is activities of daily living. And I always define that as everything you did from after you hit the snooze alarm today. So dressing, bathing, medication management, all kinds of things that when we're, our age, we're fine. We take care of ourselves, but as we get older, they start to need help with that. So when they move into the home, the average age is in the 80s somewhere, 82, 85, but there could be somebody 50 years old. There could be somebody 100 years old. So it's not that I'm looking for a certain age as much as it's people that need assistance, and it's the elderly, that's the boom. We could focus on autism and special needs of all kinds, but the seniors, that's this unstoppable tsunami of, they're not tenants, but residents who are moving into the house that need this service. So what I'm looking for is people that need that help, and really the target is the location. And when I say location, we can talk more about that. It's not even so much the geographic location of mountains or river or oceanfront. It's the demographics of people that live around it. So we want to be in an area where there's lots of people versus less people. People that are my age, 50, 60 years old, with parents who are 80 and 90 years old, because I'm really the customer. I'm the client. I'm the one who's going to make the decision on where mom moves into. And I want that to be close to me. So that demographic, we're looking for people of a certain age and then a certain income, because we don't focus on Medicare and Medicaid. We focus on private pay. So we're in the upper income people, not the top of the top. There's people paying 20, 30,000 per person per month. Not that, but the ones who are paying 4 to 8,000 a month. That's our sweet spot right there.
Gotcha. So you are looking for a certain type of demographic, in an area. So you're not really looking for, it doesn't have to be a beautiful place out there. You're looking for a certain type of demographic that can afford to pay for your model, right? And so also the age, you're not going to be in an area that's going to be a younger generation either. You're not going to have any customers, right? So, let's talk about the physical qualities of the home. what is it that you're looking for in these type of homes? I would imagine that you're not looking for a 2-story or something like that, right? So you're looking for more of a single story. Anything else that you're looking for?
Sure. So the ultimate house would be single level. Doesn't have to be. Most areas in the country, 2 stories are the norm, but single level, obviously, because then seniors don't have any mobility issues inside the house. The other thing is bigger is better. I'm going to give you a rule of thumb. 300 square feet of living space per resident is very comfortable. So if you had a 3,000 square foot house, you could have 10 residents, and that's a good number.
Hmm.
So it's a bigger house, more bathrooms than normal. You only need 2 bathrooms for 10 or 12 residents legally, but if you had 3 or 4, you're better. And if you can add bathrooms, you're even better. The other part is not just the house being big, because there's lots of big houses, but they're in bad neighborhoods. So it's not just that if it's they're going to pay it. If somebody can afford $6,000 or $8,000 a month, they're not going to bring mom to the bad side of town and drop her off.
No,
It's got to
no.
be a nice house, a nice location.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as, like, do you, on your houses, do you also have like access for wheelchairs? I mean, is that something that you just a must for all your houses, or is it just depends on the client, the tenant?
Yeah. So the house itself, we talk about senior friendly, and what that means is grab bars near the toilets and
Hmm.
showers. The doors
Hmm.
may be wider. Your front door is always your big door. It's fine. But bedrooms and bathrooms, we try to widen those to 36-inch door if possible,
Okay,
because you can get a walker or wheelchair through. You can move
gotcha.
furniture.
Hmm.
Smooth floors. So we typically take out carpets and put in smoother floors so it's easier to clean, not a trip hazard. More bathrooms is better, as I said. You will install smoke detectors for sure. Probably going to install fire suppression, even if you're not required. I recommend it. I want those people to be safe. Uh, you might have something where it's a big house with a garage that will convert the garage into living space, or a yard that we can build onto. So it's really about the location. We can scrape away the house and redo it, but the key is that location and the demographics around it.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you mentioned earlier that you are looking for, a certain type of person that has maybe challenges. Otherwise, they're going to stay at home, right? They're not going to. There's going to be no need for them to go into one of your homes, right? So they have some kind of physical challenges, or maybe even mental challenges, right? So obviously, you're having somebody there on the property to watch over them, right? They can't be there themselves, right? So
Correct.
is that something that you also have to factor into your model, their cost, that's part of the expenses?
Yeah, the biggest single expense you have is the caregiver. So here's the way it works, and I want everybody to hear me very clearly. I am
Okay.
not there on site on a daily basis. I may not go see the home until I bring a busload of people that we're training how to do this to the house to see it. So I work with the manager over the
Hmm.
phone primarily, or text or email, or once in a while. So I manage the manager. She is trained and qualified according to the state, whatever the state requires. She hires the caregivers, and they have qualifications, some states more stringent than others. But those caregivers, there's always somebody in the house 24/7, even at night. They're not necessarily sleeping there at night like live-in caregivers do shift work. They're there for 12 hours during the day, and then somebody comes in for the night shift, and they're awake. They're doing work at night. They're cleaning the house. They're taking care of residents if needed, preparing food for the next day. So it's 24/7 care in this residential setting. Not nurses, not doctors, not that. It's individuals that have been trained properly to work with seniors. They love what they're doing, and it's a real opportunity. One of our mottos, Juan, is to do well. We can talk about making money all day long, but doing something that's good to help other people, to leave something behind, that's a much higher purpose than just making money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, what is it when you say that it was the most expensive, part, I guess, of the model on the expense side? What is it that cost, like, on average, like, compared to your income? The profit that you're making.
Yeah.
I mean, what does it cost? How much a chunk does it take away?
Yeah. In our formula, in our systems, 40% would be the most that I want to spend on labor. So 40% of the gross income earmarked for labor cost. It could be a little higher. I would love it to be less, but the caregivers are your most important people, and they're also the least. They get paid the least. It's typically minimum wage plus a couple of dollars. So they're not high paid, but they love what they do. They're specifically trained for this, and They come from all over the world. We have people from the US, but also the Philippines, from Romania, from Mexico, from not so much Canada. I don't know if I've ever had a Canadian, but North
Mm.
Africa.
Yeah.
The caregivers is kind of like the United Nations there. It's kind of neat. So
Yeah.
40% would be the number.
Okay, gotcha. So you have a property manager that oversees that caregiver. Is that the model?
Well, it's not a property manager. And again, I'm trying to use the exact terms that you're all used to
Hmm.
doing
Hmm.
in multifamily. It's not a property manager, it's a manager of a business. So I want you to think about it this way. I
Okay.
just ate in a restaurant this morning here at the place I'm staying. In most places that you go to a business, and that business doesn't own the real estate. They're leasing it from somebody else.
Right.
So if it's a big place, a big facility, a hotel, somebody probably owns the dirt and they're leasing it to somebody who owns the building, who's leasing it to somebody that operates the business.
Hmm.
So this is, when we talk about manager, think about a fine dining restaurant. There's somebody who manages that restaurant. They're the ones who are in charge of hiring the front of the house, the back of the house, the kitchen staff, the wait staff. That manager's in control of that business. But the owner, me, my job is to find that manager of that business who's going to take care of everything below it. So it's not a property manager. They're going to be compensated to manage the business. To manage one of these care homes is not a full-time job. So a manager can cover 2, 3, 4 of these care homes done properly. But the business side of it is where the real money is being made. If you just own the real estate and lease it to the business, good news, you can charge anything you want for rent. And typically people will charge up to twice the market rent for that home to this person who's going to operate this REL business, and they want a long-term lease. So it's a high rent and it's a long-term, low-impact resident. And you said something else, Juan. I want to make sure I don't forget it. You said the millennials, a lot of people are focusing on housing for them.
Hmm.
By nature, that's a great market right now, but things change. And the idea of things change, I think it's really important, being the older guy here, 4 years in real estate, is to be thinking about where things are going, not where they are. So where's the puck going? Going towards seniors, senior housing, senior friendly, and even some of the apartments that people have right now who are listening, the idea of converting some or all of those units into senior friendly, that tenant's going to be there for years and years and years. The millennial might be
Very
there for
true.
a few months, a year, maybe, and they're gone. And they also tend to party a little bit harder. When grandma has a party, she's in bed by 7:15, so she's not tracking.
she,
She's not tracking
she's at
out.
home. She's
And
not a bit. That's awesome. No, that's a good point though. That's a very good point. You're most likely, well, I wouldn't say most likely, you're gonna have less turnover, on senior living. Where else they're gonna go? If they find a place that they like and they're
it dropped
comfortable
right
at, they're
there.
they're gonna stay there for a good while.
Going out
And
for a sec.
yeah, exactly. So, um, I want to talk about the leasing terms. How in our space, it's 12 months. That's kind of what the average is, right? 12 months. How is it for you? Are you also doing them annually, or how does that work?
So there's kind of two parts to your question. The first one is the operator of that business. That could be you. It could be your own entity. You might own the real estate in one entity and own the business in the other, leasing from yourself. Or if you just own the real estate, you're going to lease it to a company, and that could be you or anybody else. And it's going to be a long-term lease, a 5-year lease. And I would have the tenant take care of all the maintenance and hassles. So that's almost like a triple net lease for commercial, but I would still recommend paying your own tax and insurance. But when we talk about the residents, and I think that's what you really meant, when that
Yes.
resident comes in and you need that help, they're signing a residency agreement, not a lease. So I never have to evict. Like, that's a question always comes up. What if they run out of money? What about this? What about that? It's not a lease. It's a service that we're providing. It's a place to stay, but it's the care that they're getting. So if they don't
Gotcha.
pay, there is no eviction. You can't stay at the buffet for the rest of your life. You got to go. And it's very rare that that ever happens. But the residency agreement is typically month to month. They pay in advance. That month itself, if they want to leave, they get a 30-day notice. But most of those people are literally there for life. It's kind of like the Hotel California, in a joking way, right?
Hmm.
You check in, but you never check out. Those people are
Right.
there for the rest of their life. Most people don't, on TV, you watch a TV show and somebody goes to the hospital and flatlines, and it's not like that in real life. In real life, people just actively pass away. It's usually in the middle of the night. It's a couple of weeks beforehand where the family is coming around, gathering around. So that resident may be in the house for months or years and years. We've had a resident for 10 years now in one of our homes. So they're there for the long term.
Gotcha. On the residential side, like even for us, for multifamily, for single family, we are looking for a certain times the income. So, for example, if they're making $2,000 a month, then you want to make sure that the rent for them is maybe no more than 500 or 500 to 1,000, somewhere in that range, right? So you want to do like 2.5 times or up to 4 times their income, right? So how is it for you? Is it because you're providing a service, somebody else is paying for it? Maybe usually it's their family members. You don't put a lot of focus on that.
Oh no, there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. Number one, are you talking the valuation of the real estate itself, or what somebody can afford to pay?
No. What I'm saying is, like, in residential real estate, we look for a certain type of income or a certain amount of income, right? So, if let's say the rent is 1,000, then your monthly income has to be at least 3,000.
Got it. See, in our case, we really don't care where the money comes from. So if somebody may have long-term care insurance, and if they do, that's awesome, but only 10% of people do. Somebody may have a pension, they may have VA benefits, they may have nothing, but they have a rich son or daughter who pays for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't care how much money they have or income, because these people are no longer working. They typically have Social Security, maybe a pension, but they have houses that can be liquidated. They may have stock portfolios, IRAs, but the kids are going to pay for it. So typically when somebody comes to us, I mean, our homes vary from a low end of 3,000 a month to a high end of 8,000 a month. So when the kids come, they're usually looking at a location first and a budget second. So they pick a house and say, this is the house, and what's the budget? Well, that room is $5,000 and up. So if they come in and say, well, I can only afford $3,000 a month based on whatever criteria they have, well,
right,
that's not the house for you. We have another option over here. So where the money comes from, I really don't care, as long as it does continue to come. They pay it, they know what the rate is, they get rate increases each year, and that's how it works.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that makes sense. So as far as the payments, is it only the family members that pay for it, or do you also accept like a Medicare, Medicaid, type of payment options?
Yeah, we don't do Medicare, Medicaid, which would be akin to Section 8 housing, right? So in Section 8 housing, the good news is, for those of us who have done that in the past or currently doing it, it's guaranteed income. It always comes after the fact, not in advance. It's a reasonable rate, but you can't move them into a luxury home on Section 8. It's going to be a low-end house. So we do it in a nicer location. When we train people how to do this, level 1 is the bottom, level 5 is the top. So we want to focus on level 3, 4. It's kind of an upper income, but not the top of the top. So that person who is moving in, Medicaid wouldn't cover it. Medicaid, Medicare, $2,000 a month is kind of the norm. That's way down here. I can't make money doing that. It's a charity at that point, and I'm working for free or losing money. And up here, where we're charging $4,000 or $5,000, now there's plenty of money to pay caregivers, have a beautiful house. The nicer the house, the nicer the location, the nicer or more income the clientele typically has. So we focus on that upper income, not Medicaid, Medicare. Private pay is the term that we use. So it's coming out of somebody's pocket, and whoever that is, it is.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. You're not doing Section 8, so you're looking for a certain type of senior citizen, I guess you could say. Okay, so let's talk about any kind of licenses that are required, to operate a kind of business like this.
Sure. It's interesting. We do a lot of social media, and I got a question just the other day saying, this sounds like a lot of work. And my thought was, yeah, it's simple, but it's not easy. It does take work. And when we talk about licensing, like you said, in some states, the application to open this type of business in a residential setting is 1 or 2 pages. In some states, it's 15 pages, and people freak out. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought is, hey, if it was real easy, everybody would be doing it. I want there to be I want there to be some hoops to jump through. I don't want everybody doing this, because we need customers. We need people lying in the bed paying me the money to do it. But application itself has kind of three parts to it. One is the house needs to be senior safe. So grab bars, smoke detectors, and so on. Two, there needs to be documentation. So policies and procedures. In most businesses, that'd be called standard operating procedures. And then three, there needs to be a manager that's qualified according to whatever the state says. The low end on that is 18 years old, a GED, and a 24-hour course. And the high end in that is more training and up to 2 years experience. So it depends on which state you're in. But once you have those three things, fill in whatever paperwork is required, the license itself to get that home on the low end is $200 a year. In Arizona, it's a little over $1,000 a year per home. And in some states, it's $5,000, like Colorado, a year. But frankly, it almost doesn't matter, because once you get all those things in place, and the net income from a single family home doing this is $10, $12, $15,000 a month, it was worth jumping through the hoops, making the effort.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if you're really talking about that kind of money, yeah, exactly. So what's another way that we can, protect ourselves legally? I know this is going to be through a business entity, like you mentioned earlier. Is there any other way that we can protect ourselves? Yeah, because we're dealing with senior citizens here, so there's a lot of legality that you have to be aware of, and you have to think about, because they can get hurt on your property, or something can happen that, a death, just so many different things. So let's talk about that.
That question itself is one of the most asked questions, like, what is the liability? And they assume seniors, this is bad. It's all right. So let me get very, very real. Yeah. The people who live in our homes themselves, these people are there because they need help. They will die. We all die. So they may even fall and go to the hospital with a broken hip and die 2 weeks later. So that is normal. It's all part of doing business. Before I go into more detail, my goal is for that person to live forever. So I want mom to live forever. If I could feed her some green juice to make her live an extra 20 years, I would do it. Because that's what I want. I want to live forever. Our caregivers love the residents. Whenever you hear about abuse and things like that in senior housing, it's typically in a big box where there's 200 residents and, caregivers that come and go. In a home, that caregiver by name. You see them every single day. They know each other. And so people will pass away. It's the norm. We can also decide who moves into the house. And I say that to you, Juan, because if somebody needs to move in for assisted living, we don't have to just say yes. The Fair Housing Act is on our side because they're not tenants. Most people, when I had rentals, there were times where it's like, I do not want to rent to this person, but if I say no, I'm going to be in more trouble than if I said yes. So here we can say no, and it could be based on the family. And what I mean by that is the senior is fine, love to have them, but the family their expectations are too high. They say things like, mom fell at home 3 times last week, and I'm moving her into your home because I don't want her ever fall again. So at that point, we have to say, hold it, guarantee mom is going to fall. The difference is we're right here, caregivers, we can call 911, but just because she moves into our house doesn't mean she's never going to fall. And if that person is not a good fit, they're just a pain in the rump. And you know what I mean? We can say it's not a good fit. Mom can't move in. So the insurance on the house, you have the house, and that has its own liability insurance, slip and fall, normal stuff. On the business, it has professional liability insurance for this business. That insurance costs less than $1 a day per resident per month. So if you have 10 residents, 30 days, that's $300 a month. It's a line item. In 6 years, we've never been sued from negligence or issues. It doesn't mean somebody wasn't upset at some point about something, but we do it right. We're properly insured and never had an insurance claim and so on. And here's the part I want to get real on is I think I have less liability than most landlords out there today because we know exactly what we're in for. These people are going to move in, they're going to pass away. And nobody's not expecting it to happen, right? It's not like, oh, we thought mom was going to live to forever. No, they know she's going to pass away. But if you have a rental home and you have a 5-year-old in the house and he scales the fence in the backyard and runs down 2 houses and drowns in the neighbor's pool, your tenants are pissed off and they're going to be really upset because that is tragic. And they could sue you because your fence wasn't big enough and so on and so forth. Most people don't think about that, but that's tragic. Grandma who's 97, who's been living in our house for 5 years and the family's paying $6,000 a month, they're somewhat relieved that mom is gone at this point because she's in a better place and it's not draining the inheritance for another 6 years.
That's funny the way you say it. Okay, so what about any, financing options? So I'm thinking from a business standpoint, what type of financing is available out there, and do you have to have a lot of experience to be able to get those financing, options, available to you?
Yeah. So because it's residential, the home itself is just a home. So you can get your normal non-owner occupied loans, typically 80% loan to value. The down payment, you can finance that privately, and that's what we teach people how to do. The other part is the renovation. So what does the house need? You can do $10,000 worth of work. You can do $310,000 worth of work. So that's the second part. And some of that you can get loans on. Some of that you're going to do things that don't necessarily add to the value of the house, because the value of the house is still going to be compared to everybody else in the area in a recent transaction. And then the third part is it's a business. So any business, one of the biggest mistakes people make in starting businesses is they're undercapitalized. They don't have enough money to carry them through the negative cash flow in those first number of months. So really there's three parts, and we actually have funding solutions for all three of them. You can also use SBA, you can use USDA, you can use commercial banks, residential lenders, private lenders, syndications, and so on.
Gotcha. Okay, well then sounds great. Okay, so I think it's time for our nuggets of wealth, Gene. So let's get those started. What is a good tool, source, or platform that you use almost every day that can also help others?
That when you asked me that question earlier, I'm thinking there's so many things that I use every single day, and
Mhm.
Infusionsoft is one tool, although I have a love-hate relationship with it, right? The Google and the internet and Facebook and all that, but I don't know, you have to go with something simple like Google, just Googling, because there's so much information out there.
Okay, what was the best business advice you ever received?
It was the advice that I received was perfect, but it was the complete opposite of what they told me. Let me explain. I was learning how to speak and do presentations, and the guy said to me, "All I want you to do is don't do anything these people have done before. In other words, here's a very successful person doing this. Just don't do it that way. I want you to do it completely different." And that was horrible advice. The best advice is do exactly what somebody else is doing. In the real world, we can copy somebody, and it's perfectly legit. It's the smart way to go. Copy successful people.
I agree with that 100% because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, and guys before you have done this, for many years and have gone through so many cycles, and there's been people living forever, in like your case, we all, it's all people business, so I agree with that. Yes. Um, what is the best strategy that you use to manage your time?
To manage my time, hiring qualified people. And it took me a long time to learn that. I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years, and a lone ranger, the only guy trying to do everything, thinking I'm the best and I'm the smartest, and I've got to do it myself. No, the best thing I could suggest to you is find people who are as good and hopefully much better than you are to do things. It'll allow you to expand and grow. Uh, that's my best advice.
Gotcha. Okay. Where do you see your business in the next 5 years?
This business is literally exploding, the silver tsunami. So we currently have actually three businesses. The education side, we have a company that you can invest in these, and we also have a media company. And this year we're launching a fourth company, which is an operations company. So within 5 years, our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal, is to be involved in 10,000 of these homes being started, created, owned, or operated that people have come through our training that we've personally helped. So 10,000 of these homes across the country.
Wow. Okay. 10,000 times how much in income? I mean, that's that's a pretty good number.
Well,
Um,
yeah, that's not me owning those homes. I own
yeah.
my homes right now. I own and
Yeah.
operate.
I was
This is
helping
me.
others. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I wanted to go back to that. Give us an example of a typical home. You're kind of like
Sure.
the median one, right? So, how much
Yeah.
income, and just kind of break it down for us. Because I know it's a little bit different, but just tell us how the potential that you can get from one of these properties, from owning one of these properties and running a business like this.
You got it. And by the way, I know that those listening have tons of questions. If you want, I've got a free training that I can give them access to at the end. But a very typical home, let's use easy math. The average right now is 4,000 per person per month. So we use that, not high or low. 10 people. You can have more than that in some states and so on, but let's use 10, easy math. So potential gross income of $40,000 a month on an average home. Once we add in everything, and I told you labor is your biggest expense, 40% or less, manager, food, insurance, rent, whether it's your mortgage payment or rent, and so on, all of that together is going to be somewhere around 70%, 80% of that gross income. So that $40,000 a month, what I'm looking for is $8,000 to $12,000 a month, legitimate, coming to me a profit at the end of each and every month.
Wow. So yeah, it's definitely a very rewarding business, to get into. For anybody out there looking to, or even thinking about it, you might want to reach out to Gene, and ask him about this, because it really is powerful. At the end of your life, Gene, how do you want to be remembered?
Wow, that's kind of neat, because I just spent an evening meeting a new friend out here in Mexico, and between him and a couple others and about a tequila, we had this conversation last night. It's it's the people that you leave behind and the effect that you have on them. And I have 4 kids and 2 grandkids, and I think the thing I'm most proud about is they're all successful in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
They're all doing what their passion is. They can make their own decisions. They have confidence. They can communicate. So I want to be remembered for the kids and the grandkids and the great times that we had together. Not the money, not the units, not the stuff, but the relationships, people you meet, and the family and what you leave behind in that regard.
There you go. A perfect answer. Yes. Okay. So, Gene, where can Come Into Wealth Nation go to contact you and find out more about you and your services and your educational platform, your academy?
Sure. Let me give you 2 websites, and if you're writing it down, they're very simple. So the first one is a free training, introductory. It'll answer a lot of questions for you. It's RAL 101. So Residential Assisted Living, RAL101.com. That's the free training. And then our website has a lot of information on it, RALacademy.com, RALacademy.com.
Okay. So RAL101.com is the free training, and then RALacademy.com to find out more about you and to be able to reach out to you. Okay. Well, then, Gene, it was a pleasure to have you on. I learned a ton. I really did. It's just by talking to you and just these, 30, 40 minutes here, I was able to learn a ton. So I'm sure that my listeners also got a ton of value out of this. And so, this is something that you guys really need to look into, because, there is a big demand out there. Like you said, he gave us the numbers of the number of people that are actually, turning 65 every single day, turning, 85, so it's going to be something that, if you get into it now, you're going to be happy that you did, so here in the next few years. So, Gene, it was a pleasure. I wish you continued success in all that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juan. Let me give one last piece here. And everybody, I guarantee you're going to get involved in this one way or the other. You're either going to own the real estate, operate the business, or you or a family member is going to be lying in a bed writing a check to somebody who does. Right now, you got a choice, so make a good one. And you got to do something you have passion in and be looking forward. So come on in. The water's fine.
There you go. I like that. Okay. Well, Gene, I really appreciate it. And you have a great day.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you so much.